Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Win in STEM podcast. For our first-time listeners, Win in STEM is the platform to highlight successful people of color STEMists to show others how to get a seat at the table and win in science, technology, engineering, and math. On today's episode, we'll be talking about networking. Have y'all heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know? Networking is so important nowadays, and I'm excited for our guest speaker to talk about ways to leverage your college and professional network to your advantage, especially in the Black community. My special guest for today is Cimone. She is the founder of Hey Cimone, an organization whose mission is to help students navigate the decisions of college. She is also on the track to be the first African American woman to get a PhD in computer engineering from Iowa State University. First, that's dope. That is so major. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And when do you graduate?
I am graduating spring 2022. Um, and yeah, no, I'm very excited to kind of pave this path and more importantly, share my wisdom with the community.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. And thank you for being a guest on the podcast. I appreciate it. So, before we get started, one of the things we do on the podcast is to allow our guests to introduce themselves. So, basically, unapologetically telling our listeners who you are, what you do, share your accomplishments, all the good stuff. So, this is your time to shine. The floor is yours.
Hey everybody, my name's Cimone Wright-Hamor, also known as Hey Cimone. And what I do as far as Hey Cimone is concerned is really helping people in STEM navigate the financial decisions of college to obtain a debt-free degree in a job that they love. I have worked at various organizations, both public, private, national labs, state work. I've done all of it. And I impart my wisdom through the Hey Cimone platform and make sure that other people of color have a easy transition and really understand what they're dealing with.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's deep dive in. So, networking. What is networking and why is it important? Because I know it's their saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So, what is that? What's the history behind that?
So I'm a computer engineer. So I'm going to define networking from that standpoint and really kind of shift your mindset about how you see networking.
Mhm.
So from my standpoint, networking is the practice of exchanging information and ideas between nodes over time, where the people are the nodes and the data being transferred creates links between the people.
Mhm.
And I defined it that way because I stress the importance of transferring information between two nodes, between two people. When people started getting on Facebook, the definition of networking changed. It was as
Mhm.
simple as click, add, you're part of my quote unquote network. And that's not necessarily accurate. In the
Mhm.
terms of STEM or a career, you need to be transferring information, and that information needs to be bidirectional in
Mhm.
order for that person to really be a genuine part of your network.
Mhm.
And the network's important because these people can open doors of opportunities for you in
Mhm.
spaces where you are not allowed.
Yeah.
But the key part of that is they have to know what you do and where you want to go in
Mhm.
order to open those doors for you, in order to know you want to go through that door. So when they say it's not what you know, it's who you know, the reason it's who you know is because they're in spaces that you're not.
That's a great definition. So we have a lot of college and professionals who listen to the podcast. So I guess we can break it down between those. So in college, how do you develop your network as a college student?
So I'll start by saying one step up. If you are a college student listening to this, I think you need to understand what the value of college is, and it's not the degree. If
Mm-hmm.
that were true, you would have a job at graduation with just by graduating, and
Yeah.
it's not what's happening. The real value of college is in the mindset, the resources, and the network. So, in terms of a college student, you need to understand that the university has the largest network in the world. There is no other organization with a bigger network, and it's because there is no organization that has been established as long as a university or a college. They literally have generations worth of networks that you could tap into. So
Mm.
it's unlikely that you want to do something and somebody associated with that college doesn't know how to do it. It is very unlikely. So, as a college student, you first need to figure out what is it that you want to do. Get very crystal clear. You should be able to articulate that in one sentence. And in terms of the Hey Cimone platform, I help high school staff and students navigate the financial decisions of college. That's one sentence. So, once you get clear about that, that's how you need to be introducing yourself.
Mhm.
And then you need to intentionally go find people that could help you achieve that goal. But you have to be intentional. If you're not
Mhm.
intentional, you're just wandering in off the streets, not knowing what's going on, not knowing who's in the room. That's a major mistake.
Mhm.
So, here I'm going to share with you a small story that happened to me. All of my degrees have been debt free. I actually
Ooh.
made money off of college. I made six figures off of college through
What?
scholarships.
Wow.
And when I first got started down this path, I was a sophomore, and my mom had just had a stroke. And I actually had my little brother staying in my dorm room, and he was 3.
Mm.
So I made some mistakes and did not apply for enough scholarships. So I was short some change for this next semester. I went to what is called the External Advisory Board meeting for my department, and I was actually intending to talk to the department chair and ask him if he could find me some money. However, when I got in the room, they had already started the meeting and I didn't want to interrupt, so I figured I would wait. The guy sitting next to me starts asking me why I was here. I was like, am I not allowed to be here? I thought students were allowed. And he goes, no, it's just I don't normally see students show up. So I explained to him my situation. He starts asking me a little bit more about my internship experience and why I'm in college and my purpose. By the end of that conversation, he asked me how much did I need, pulled out his checkbook and wrote me a check. And when I
Wow.
hesitated, I gave him a number and then I hesitated like, he goes, do you need a little bit more for like books and stuff? And I'm like, yeah, like 3,000 more. He goes, no problem. Writes me a check and walks away. Turns
Wow.
out that his family, so at Iowa State University, there's this huge family name called Suck Up on the side of the building. Turns out that's his family.
Mm.
That little check he wrote me was nothing, and all I had to do was ask and show up.
Wow. I'm speechless. Wow.
He literally wrote me a check for the amount that I needed plus some and didn't care about it and just walked away. To me directly, not to the school, not to somewhere where the IRS would tax it. He gave it to me in my hand. He didn't even care what I did with it after that. He didn't even check if I graduated.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so that's the power of networking and showing up and knowing who's in the room as a
Mhm.
college student. Remember, as a college student, you are literally a part of the largest network in the world. Figure out what you want to do and then go find somebody in the alumni association to help you find someone else associated with the university that does that thing. Second story regarding college. So, I'm a part of the National Society of Black Engineers. I went to
Woo-hoo.
the conference and I wore my university polo. I'm standing in this long line of people to interview for Microsoft. The guy there went to my university and I had no idea. He goes, "Hey, you with the red polo." I'm like, "Yes." "ISU?" I'm like, "Yeah." He called me up and I jumped 40 people in line and I just walked up there like, "Oh Lord, this they gonna hate me." I get to the front and he starts looking at my resume. He goes, "Oh, you good? Okay, okay. I see you doing this, that, and that. You're a part of some other organization I was a part of on campus." So we get to talking. We get personal, and after he invites me to an exclusive Microsoft event in which they end up giving me some free stuff. And he ends up landing me the interview, and I end up working for the Xbox One team.
Wow.
Again, my university network. I've never received a job without my network. I've never just applied online and got a job. It has never happened. And I have applied to thousands of jobs,
Mm.
and every single one I've received is because of the network. Now, let's talk about this from a professional standpoint. A lot of professionals, once they get out into the world, they quickly find a significant other and or start having children, and so their time becomes constrained
Mhm.
and they stop being proactive about their network. And this is where I will strongly discourage anybody to ever do that. These jobs are not loyal. This
Mhm.
isn't the past anymore. They will drop you the moment they think they might have
Say
a
it again,
financial
sis. Say
problem.
it again.
So I say this because I don't want people to pledge their loyalty
Mm.
and bank everything on this job and then become dependent on a paycheck from a job that they hate.
Mhm.
Let me say that again. Because this is my biggest fear, right? Is becoming dependent on a paycheck from a job that I hate.
Mm.
For that reason, you need to be intentional about your network, right? I understand that, we have significant others, may even have children or both, and just super, super busy, right?
Mhm.
Therefore, when you're out and about and you're talking to people, this should not be a mindless activity. You need to be actively engaged. What are your goals for the next 5 years and who can help you get there? But when you are intentional about networking, you need to make sure that it's transformational, meaning that that flow of ideas and support is going both ways. If
Mhm.
it's just going one direction, that's transactional and nobody likes that because they feel like they're being used.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I saw you posted that you do this podcast, I already knew what my goals were for Hey Cimone. Instead of reaching out to you and saying, hey, what can you do for me? I did my homework. I went and watched a few episodes. I learned what the podcast was about. And then I asked myself before I contacted you, what value can I add to this podcast, to this organization?
Mm.
And then I reached out once I figured out that I could add you value.
Mm.
That's what I mean by transformational and not transactional.
Yeah. Thank you for that. One key point that I've received from your story is being intentional and knowing what you want. I think the way to make networking the most effective is going in and knowing what your goals are, what you need from maybe from a personal, professional standpoint, and tapping into your network of people to see who can help fill that gap for you, but also making sure what you can provide to them as well. Like you said, it can't be just a one-way street. It has to be transactional.
And I'll add another note. So this is a really insider information because I usually don't tell people this, but so my network is huge. Genuinely, I've actively been engaged in building my network and keeping that link, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what I tell people is when you build a network, if you don't send information across to that node or that other person on the other end, that link gets weak.
Mm-hmm.
So periodically you need to be engaging with that person, letting them know where you're at because chances are where you're at today was not where you were at 5 years ago. And if that's the case, we need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people try to do this by like keeping it in their head and just saying, yo, I'll reach out in a week or a few months or whatever. I don't do that. As a computer engineer, I can't keep any of that information in my head. Therefore, what I do is I use a customer relationship management tool. And the tool that I use is called HubSpot. They have a free version. So when I interact with people, I create a profile for them in HubSpot and I add their first and last name, what organization are they at right now, when did they start? So the next time I contact them, I could follow up, be like, oh, are you still at, Microsoft or Amazon or wherever? And I make notes in there. Additionally, if I tell them I'm going to follow up in a month, I
Mm-hmm.
set a date and a task associated with that date in HubSpot. So it reminds me a couple days or a week before, hey, remember you said you were going to reach out to John. Don't forget to do that. And you promised him that you would give him this or make this connection. And so I use HubSpot, even though it's typically used for businesses. I use it for managing my professional life and making sure that I am keeping my network strong and adding
Mm.
value to people. So a lot of times I'll reach out just to follow up with people and check where they're at and if they need
Mhm.
something.
Wow, that's dope. Wow, that's such a creative way to do that. I might even start implementing that. I think for me, I'm also, an engineer, electrical engineering and system engineering. So I also have a big network, but sometimes it's hard for me to keep track. Like I'll say, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this person, and then I end up forgetting, or if I do reach out to someone, I forget the last topic. So having that platform that's a major key. I'll definitely check into that. And you said it's a free?
Yeah, there's a free version where you don't have to, because if you're not using the sales portion or the marketing portion, you can
Mhm.
use just the free layer. So what I do is when I'm talking to people, I always ask them how they want to interact because occasionally I get people who are introverts and they prefer email or text message or maybe even a message via social media, and that's fine, right?
Mhm.
Because what you're dealing with when you get somebody who's introverted, when we ask them a question, we have to give them time to think. And the amount of time I give an introvert versus the extrovert is very different. Extrovert, 30 seconds, not even 10 seconds, and they got you. An
Mhm.
extrovert, you might need 15 minutes
Mhm.
because they like to think through the ways that their response is going to be received.
Mhm.
And you don't want to make the person feel like you're intruding on their space or make them feel uncomfortable. So always ask them, what's your best form of communication? Would you prefer me to call you in video chat or would you prefer me to send you an email or a text message?
Mhm.
Because for me, if you show up at my front door, I guarantee you I'm not going to open it. And I have a camera. I can just tell you to well, go away. Like, don't do that. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Ask
Yeah.
people how they want to be interacted with. And don't just assume that because you like to meet up in person at Starbucks, that they like to meet up in person.
Mhm. So speaking of introverts and extroverts, what are your networking tips for those people? I know one way can work for particular people and another way can be more effective for another people. So what are your thoughts about that?
Oh, I love this question. So, introverted people genuinely need time to respond. So, what I often tell them to do is to stick to written communication, but
Mhm.
ask the person how they want to be interacted with. So, if you get somebody who is social, they'll often want to be hit me up on social media, right? So, if you're dealing with somebody who's extroverted and you're introverted,
Mhm.
they're probably going to refer you to social media. Furthermore, if you're dealing with somebody who's extroverted, they might want to meet in person. You might not feel so comfortable with that. So you might want to send them some questions in advance to give them some time to kind of prep a little bit, go through the questions a bit. But again, it's always about the person you're interacting with, what they feel comfortable with you, and can you come to a happy medium?
And so let's say you you hate reaching out to your network for yourself and because you feel like you don't want to be a burden to others and you're afraid of rejection, how do you overcome those barriers to tap into your network?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I'm going to share a rejection story. When I first got started in tech, I had no experience. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anybody in my family who did this. And so I really struggled. I was directly just going up to people like, yo, will you be my mentor? And they were just like, no. And I was like, what? You're so and so's mentor. Why can't you be mine? So I didn't
Mhm.
understand that having somebody who's a mentor requires a genuine connection. It's
Mm,
not just as simple as do this,
yeah.
right? There has to be a motive and a connection. Without either or, it's not mentoring. It's more like torture. So, how I got around that was I still needed information. But instead of going and asking people to be my mentor, what I would do is I come to them with a specific set of questions. Like, hey, do you mind if I ask you a few questions over lunch? And they'll be like, yeah, sure. No problem. Now, they have no idea that they're mentoring me, but that's basically what they're doing.
Hmm.
It's just when you put a label on it, it's kind of like commitment. Some people don't like the idea of marriage, but they're okay with shacking up with somebody for 11 years. So as long as you don't put a label on it, they're cool with it.
Cool, yeah.
It's super weird, but it's real.
Hmm.
So That is an important piece, making sure that when you're interacting with people, you're respecting their time, you're being intentional. And if you tell
Mhm.
them, hey, this is only going to last 30 minutes, if I don't care if you have to set a timer at 25 minutes, don't go over that 30 minutes. If you respect their time, they're more likely to give you more of it when you quest in the future.
Yes.
So if you don't like interacting with people very often, which I didn't after getting rejected in the beginning, I set up an email list. So I had a list of people, very small list actually, is like 20 people that I would just email once a month. And I kind of low key sent them all the same message, but it was basically like,
They
here
don't know
I am.
that.
Right, they don't. Um, it was basically like, yo, what's up? Last time we talked, I was here, now I'm here. Here's where I want to be. Genuinely, that was it. Here's where I was the last time we talked. Here's where I currently am right now in my degree and in my career and in my technical knowledge, but here's where I want to be. And the value
Mhm.
of that, of telling them where I want to be and where I currently am, is they can fill the gap.
Mhm.
So I like to use this example of going on a plane, right? Whenever you book a flight, you have to have a origin and a date you want to leave,
Mhm.
and a destination and a date you want to arrive, right?
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I don't ask the captain what coordinates we're taking, how
What route
fast
are
we're
we
going to be
taking?
moving. I don't what route. I don't care, right?
Just get me to
I trust that they're
point
going to
B.
get me there, right? If I book a flight for Atlanta, I trust that I'm arriving in Atlanta and not Miami. Okay, because I don't really have, sometimes you don't have the extra funds to reroute, right? So I
Yeah.
trust that they got me. You need to trust that your network got you,
Mm.
but you have to tell them where you currently are and where you want to go, and trust that they're the captains and they're going to get you there. When they see that opportunity arise, you have to trust that they will reach out and let you know what's available.
Mhm.
They will speak your name in spaces that you are not allowed.
Mm. That's a fact. Definitely a fact. So, how about you've been good networking, with a couple of people, and you fell off for quite some time, a couple of months. So, how do you, or what are some methods that you can start implementing to build that relationship again with your network?
Honestly, reaching out consistently. And to me, about once a month seems to be the sweet spot. It's just long enough where they can miss me and not be annoyed, but it's also long enough where I could have made some progress. I should have made some progress.
Mhm.
So that sweet spot, and again, the first couple years I was just strictly emails. I wasn't calling or video chatting. Now I ask people what their preferences are and then I communicate that way.
Mhm. And how about if it's a new, let's see, it's a new person. Let's say you met somebody like on Clubhouse, right? When
Mhm.
Clubhouse was, its prime, and you added them on LinkedIn. What would your approach be?
Oh my
Would
gosh,
you?
I love this one. So when you first meet somebody, even if it's on social media and you haven't met them in person yet, the value of the internet is powerful. Go do your homework on that person. What do they do right now? And how can you add value to their life? If you don't think you can add value, you better go look up some value to add. But don't ever
Mhm.
go to someone and just be like, hey, what can you do for me? Right? You're going to feel disrespected if somebody walked up to you and was like, what value you got for me?
What can you bring
Like,
to the
what you going to do to
table?
make my life better? You're going to look at them like, who do you think you are? I
Mhm.
know you didn't just roll up on me and tell me that I need to add value to your life. Baby, bye. So don't do that. That's how people feel when you come basically asking for something and you don't have anything to give. And it's very dangerous. Don't play that game.
Mhm.
Always look to add value before you ask for value.
Definitely look for ways that you can make an impact in someone's life as you're also looking for someone to make an impact in your own life.
Yeah, just make it mutually beneficial. This is why I call it
Mhm.
transformational. I try to make sure that when people interact with me, it's transformational. They feel like they get value every time they interact with me so that they're excited to interact next time. Like, yo, what is she gonna say today that's gonna change my life?
Mhm. So, our key point of this episode, how can we or everyone leverage their college network or professional network to their advantage?
Your network is only as valuable as your goals are clear. And here's how I'm gonna say this. When you go to Google and you need to find something online, you usually put in some keywords, right? If your keywords are not accurate or specific enough, you're going to get a bunch of noise. The more accurate your keywords are, the more accurate your results are. Same thing is true when you're porting over the same idea to your network. The more clear your goals are, your brain will filter all the noise that you're taking in from your senses and look for opportunities. And it will look for opportunities and people to network with. But first, you have to tell your brain what your goal is, and it has to be very clear and accurate. Telling your brain you want to solve cancer is not a clear goal. It doesn't have a time frame on it. Which cancer? Do you know how many cancers there are?
Mhm.
Right? So you have to be very, very clear about your goals. Once you get clear about your goals, your mind will start to filter out unnecessary information and find opportunities and people that will help you get there. So the trick to your brain works like this. You ever notice when you buy a car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere? Kind of making
Yeah.
it feel like, oh, so I bought the car, now you want the car, right?
Mhm.
Well, statistically speaking, that's not accurate. The average number of Honda Civics before I bought one and after I bought one is actually the same. However, I have told my conscious mind to look for a Honda Civic. So now my subconscious is going to filter out all that information taken in by my senses and is going to look for a Honda Civic. So now I see this car everywhere. So for the first time, I'm recognizing the car because I told my subconscious to look for it. Your subconscious mind works the same way with networking. You have to give it a goal, and it will find the opportunities and point out the people you should probably be networking with without you having to consciously find that opportunity yourself. And that's where people think it's called luck, and it's not luck.
I love it. It's being strategic. And also, I like to add, when you're creating goals, make sure there are SMART goals. SMART as in specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time based. You want to make sure that your goals are specific to the T, to the point that finding people in your network, maintaining your network shouldn't be stressful. Building a network shouldn't be stressful at all, only if you're able to prepare for it.
Correct. I'll add another tidbit about networking. Your network is powerful beyond measure. When I started the Hey Cimone platform, my intention was just to focus on students. And I sat down with a few people in my network and bounced the idea off of them, and they really loved it. However, what they did is they took my small idea and expanded it beyond measures that I could have done on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so now what I do is I go around to college orientations, conferences, and high schools, and I train actual high school counselors and staff to do what I was trying to do on my own. So now I can actually scale.
Sometimes our minds are limited. It's really up to when we're conversing and engaging with our network that they're able to either open up doors for us or just open up our minds to other possibilities that we never thought of. And because you're networking with them, like your idea, future ideas, when an opportunity comes up, for example, like a speaking engagement, they already have you in mind to be there for that opportunity.
Agreed.
This was definitely a great conversation about networking. I was over here jotting down notes. I even have homework for myself to do. I know personally I need to do better maintaining my network.
Pro tip, HubSpot has an app that can go on your phone. And the reason I mention that is because not only could you record your phone calls and your conversations, but it has a business card scanner. So now instead of taking people's business cards and like making them run out or, making them go buy more, you could actually just scan it in and it will automatically create a profile in your HubSpot account for you. So not that I'm getting paid by HubSpot because I'm definitely not. Uh, but I'm always about sharing tips so that people can stay connected,
Mhm.
genuine connections.
Awesome. Yeah, we love free game on this podcast. We love sharing gems that people never even thought about. Like HubSpot, when I think of HubSpot, I think of, professional work environment using that, but using it on a personal level to keep track of networking, that's an awesome idea. I'm definitely going to implement that.
Use it. I have all of my students using it like crazy.
So, a lot of our listeners, they like to follow up with our podcast guests. So, where can our listeners connect with you and how can they connect with you just to make sure that the networking that they're doing is most effective?
Yeah, of course. You can reach out to me on Twitter. I usually respond to people on Twitter. So hey underscore Cimone, and Cimone is spelled Cimone. Or you can hit me up at Cimone at heycimone.com.
Awesome. And how about for your business? If potential people want to invite you to speak to their college students, should they hit you up at your website as well?
Yes, actually, there's contact information there. So, um, moment of honesty, I do prioritize historical Black colleges. So, if I already have an event booked for that day and it conflicts with yours, I prioritize historical Black colleges so the other one can get bumped.
All right, good to know. Well, thank you so much again, Simone, for supporting the podcast and sharing your wisdom, your gems on how to leverage your network. Thank you for your stories. I think that's definitely going to be very impactful to our listeners and letting them know that networking is important. Either you're in college looking for a job, looking for scholarships, or in the professional world looking for that, next big thing. And my listeners, you never know. Your next big break, promotion, or wherever you're looking for might come from someone in your network. So I hope you took some good notes today. Once again, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Win and STEM podcast. Make sure to rate, like, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Google, and Pandora. Make sure to tell a friend to tell a friend. Follow us on Instagram at the Win and STEM podcast and tag us with your favorite takeaway. Enjoy the rest of the week. Until next time. Y'all be great and go out and win in STEM.